What comes to your mind when you hear the name Raila Amollo Odinga? A prime minister, an opposition leader, a member of parliament for Langata constituency.
When the government officials travel abroad, the bookings are done by Kenyan ambassadors and high commissions abroad.
Definitely, this can never be far from the truth. Odinga has run for president of Kenya 5 times, with none of his attempts being successful. Each time, Odinga has alleged electoral fraud. In Kenya's political landscape, various factors change from different candidates, their ideologies, and their agenda. But one thing remains constant: Raila Amollo Odinga. But one question is constant: who is this Raila Amollo Odinga? In 1997, he finished third as the candidate of the National Development Party (NDP). In 2007, he ran again for the presidency under the Orange Democratic Movement (ODM) and lost to Mwai Kibaki. In 2013, 2017, and 2022, Odinga was the runner-up as a candidate for Coalition for Reforms and Democracy called National Super Alliance (NASA) and Azimio la Umoja respectively. After its loss, he filed for petition against President-elect William Ruto at the Supreme Court of Kenya. The court decided against him.
This court ordered scrutiny of the forms from the 41 polling stations outlined in the affidavit of Celestine Opio to ascertain the allegation of interference. And this is our finding. 1. There were no significant differences captured between the Forms 34A uploaded on the public portal and the physical Forms 34A delivered to bombers that would have affected the overall outcome of the presidential election. B. No credible evidence was presented to support the allegation that Forms 34A presented to agents differed from those uploaded to the public portal. The report by the registrar of this court confirmed the authenticity of the original forms in the sampled polling stations.
Raila Odinga was born at the Anglican Church Mission Society Hospital in Maseno, Kisumu District, Nyanza Province on 7th January 1945 to Mary Juma Odinga and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. His father served as the first Vice President of Kenya under President Jomo Kenyatta. He is a member of the Luo ethnic group. He went to Kisumu Union Primary, Maranda Primary in Bondo, and Maranda High School, where he studied until 1962, when he was transferred by his father to Germany. He spent the next 2 years at the Herder Institution, which trained foreign students in the German language, and was part of the philological faculty at the University of Leipzig in East Germany. He received a scholarship that in 1965 sent him to the Technical College of Magdeburg, now a part of Otto von Guericke University Magdeburg in the GDR. In 1970, he graduated with a certificate in welding. While studying in East Germany during the Cold War as a Kenyan, he was able to visit West Berlin through the checkpoint charge. Odinga returned to Kenya in 1970, and in 1971, he founded the Standard Processing Equipment Construction and Erection Limited, later renamed East African Spectra, the only company manufacturing liquid petroleum gas cylinders in Kenya. In 1974, Odinga was appointed Group Standards Manager of the Kenya Bureau of Standards. After holding this position for 4 years, he was promoted to be the Deputy Director in 1978, a post he held until his 1982 detention. At 3 a.m. on Sunday, 1st of August 1982, a group of soldiers from the Kenya Air Force led by Senior Private Hezekiah Chuka attempted to overthrow the government of then President Daniel Arap Moi. After the failed attempt to overthrow him, President Moi reorganized the Kenya Security stuffing it with his loyalists, and then he ensured a law was passed in parliament that gave him emergency powers while placing the provincial administration under the office of the president. Odinga was arrested and charged with treason after being accused of being among the masterminds of the 1982 coup. He was released 6 years later in February 1988, but detained again in August of the same year to be released in June 1989. In an era of unrelenting human rights abuse by the Kenyan government, Odinga was placed under house arrest for 7 months after evidence seemed to implicate him, along with his late father, Oginga Odinga, for collaborating with the plotters of the failed coup attempt against President Daniel Arap Moi in 1982. Hundreds of Kenyan civilians and thousands of rebel soldiers died in the coup. Several foreigners also died. Odinga was later charged with treason and detained without trial for 6 years. Among some of his most painful experiences was when his mother died in 1984, but the prison wardens took 2 months to inform him of her death. He was released on 6th February 1988, only to be rearrested in September 1988 for his pro-democracy and human rights agitation at a time when the country continued to descend deep into the throes of poor governance and the despotism of single-party rule. Multi-party democracy Kenya was then by law a one-party state. His encounters with the authoritarian government generated an aura of intrigue about him, and it was probably due to this that his political followers christened him Agwambo, Luo for mystery or unpredictability, or Jacom, meaning chairman. Odinga was released on 12th June 1989, only to be reincarnated again on 5th July 1990, together with Kenneth Matiba and former Nairobi Mayor Charles Rubia, both multi-party system and human rights crusaders.
Moi must go! 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 Moi must go!
Odinga was finally released on 21st June 1991, and in October, he fled the country to Norway amid indications that the increasingly corrupt Kenyan government was attempting to assassinate him without success. At the time of Odinga's departure to Norway, the Forum of the Restoration of Democracy, FORD, a movement formed to agitate for the return of multi-party democracy to Kenya, was newly formed. In February 1992, Odinga returned to join FORD, then led by his father Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. He was elected vice chairman of the General Purposes Committee of the party. In the months running up to the 1992 general election, FORD split into FORD Kenya led by Odinga's father, Jaramogi Odinga, and Ford Asili, led by Kenneth Matiba. Odinga became Ford's Kenya's Deputy Director of Elections. Odinga won the Lang'ata constituency parliamentary seat, previously held by Philip Liki of KANU. Odinga became the second father of multi-party democracy in Kenya after Kenneth Matiba. When Jaramogi Odinga died in January 1994 and Michael Wamalwa Kijana succeeded him as Ford Kenya chairman, Odinga challenged him for the party leadership. The elections were marred by controversy.
The neck is still there. We'll have another go at another election. Wamalwa Kijana is no longer chairman of Ford Kenya.
Kuchukua nafasi hii kuwahakikishia wafuasi wa Ford Kenya ya kwamba nitawafanyia kazi kama mnavyotaka. Mimi nitakuwa, kwa Kiingereza mnasema your servant and not your master.
The perpetrators of these actions are really enemies of multi-party democracy.
Lack of respect for the rule of law would destroy democracy in this country.
Which Odinga resigned from Ford Kenya to join the National Development Party (NDP).
Time has come to change course. I wish to inform you that I have resigned as a member of Ford Kenya. I hereby tender my resignation as a member of parliament.
In his first bid for the presidency in 1997 general election, Odinga finished third after President Moi, the incumbent and Democratic Party candidate Mwai Kibaki. He, however, retained his position as the Lang'ata MP. In a surprise move, Odinga decided to support Moi, his arch-enemy, even entering into a political merger between his party NDP and Moi's much-hated KANU party, which many Kenyans likened to the yoke of oppression. The merger was called New KANU. Previous admirers of Odinga now saw him as a sellout to a cause he had once championed by closing ranks with a despot. He accepted a position in Moi's cabinet as energy minister, serving from June 2001 to 2002 during Moi's final term. In the subsequent KANU elections held later that year, he was elected the party secretary general, replacing Joseph Kamotho. It was apparent to many that Odinga hoped to ascend to the presidency through KANU and with Moi's support. In 2002, much to the chagrin of Odinga and many other hopefuls in the party, Moi endorsed Uhuru Kenyatta, son of Kenya's first president, Jomo Kenyatta, but a relative newcomer in politics, to be his successor. Moi publicly asked Odinga and others to support Uhuru as well.
Kwa sababu dunia hii imeenda ukabila, vyama vyote vya kikabila, na nikaona kwamba yule ambaye anaweza kuendelea kupeleka wananchi kama vile mimi ningependelea wananchi kuongozwa ni Uhuru Kenyatta. Huyo kijana huyo, na mimi na washukuru wala ambao wangetaka kufuata ile yangu. Kama upande usikitu, weka mikono juu nione. Utekeza.
This was taken as an affront by many of the party loyalists who felt they were being asked to make way for a newcomer who, unlike them, had done little to build the party. Odinga and other KANU members, including Kalonzo Musyoka, George Saitoti, and Joseph Kamotho, opposed this step, arguing that the then 38-year-old Uhuru was politically inexperienced and lacked the leadership qualities needed to govern. Moi stood his ground, maintaining that the country's leadership needed to pass to the younger generation. Dissent ran through the party, with some members openly disagreeing with Moi, despite his reputation as an autocrat.
There come a time when the nation is more important than anything.
It was then that the Rainbow Movement was founded, comprising disgruntled KANU members who exited KANU. The exodus led by Odinga saw most big names fleeing the party. Moi was left with his handpicked successor almost alone, with the party reduced to an empty shell with poor electoral prospects. The Rainbow Movement went on to join the Liberal Democratic Party (LDP), which later teamed up with opposition Mwai Kibaki's National Alliance Party of Kenya (NAC), a coalition of several other parties to form the National Rainbow Coalition (NAC). It fears that this opposition super alliance will fail to unite and rally behind a common candidate as in previous occasions, and thus easily hand victory to the government. Odinga declared Kibaki tosha, Swahili for Kibaki is sufficient.
Lakini sisi tukaenda tukaweka juu, tukaunda National Rainbow Coalition NAC, sivyo? Tukasema NAC sasa ndio itakuwa ni jahazi yetu ambayo tunavuka naye kutoka ngambo hii kuelekea Canaan, si sawa sawa? Alafu siku ile mimi niliuliza nyinyi pale kule Uhuru Park, ati hii mzee Kibaki si ametosha? Na mkasemaje? Nyachai akasema tio Raila alifanya makosa. Mimi nilisema, niliuliza wananchi na wananchi walisema Kibaki ametosha. Yametosha? Yametosha? Ulafi wa siasa hawezi kupeleka mtu mahali. Wakati inafika ambaye kama wewe ni mwanasiasa mpaka uangalie kwenye ukuta na usome maneno ambayo iko kwenye ukuta.
An endorsement of a Kibaki ticket. This resolved the matter of candidacy, and NAC went on to defeat Moi's protege Uhuru Kenyatta. The opposition won a landslide 67% of the vote, dealing a humiliating blow to Moi. Odinga led the campaign for Kibaki throughout the country while Kibaki was bedridden and incapacitated following an accident while on his way back to Nairobi from a campaign meeting at Machakos Junction, 40 kilometers from Nairobi, in which he sustained injuries. On assuming office, President Kibaki did not appoint Raila as Prime Minister in the new government. Contrary to a pre-election memorandum of understanding, Kenya's constitution had no provision for Prime Minister yet. Neither did he give LDP, Odinga's faction, half of the cabinet position as per the MOU. He instead sought to entrench and increase his own NAC side in cabinet, even appointing MPs from the opposition parties, KANU and Ford people to the cabinet. The perceived betrayal started a simmering disquiet, which in time led to an open rebellion and a split within the cabinet. A key point of the disagreement was a proposed new constitution for the country, which was a major campaign issue that had united Kibaki's NAC and Odinga's LDP in the campaign. This constitution included provisions to trim presidential powers to reign in what was seen as an autocratic presidency, a feature of both the Moi and first President Jomo Kenyatta's regimes, which had led to a lot of power abuse and unaccountability leadership. Once in power, however, Kibaki's government instituted a constitutional committee which turned around and submitted a draft constitution that was perceived to consolidate presidential powers and weaken regional government, contrary to the pre-election draft. Odinga opposed this and went on to campaign with his LDP cabinet colleagues on the referendum no side, posing the president and his lieutenants in a bruising countrywide campaign. When the document was put to a referendum on 21st November 2005, the government lost by a 57% to 43% margin. Embarrassingly for Kibaki, out of 8 provinces, only one, Central Province, where his tribe, the Kikuyu, are dominant, voted yes for the document, isolating his own tribe from the rest of Kenya and exposing his campaign as ethnic-based. Well-rocked and disappointed, President Kibaki sacked the entire cabinet on 23rd November 2005.
Fellow Kenyans, following the results of the referendum, it has become necessary for me, as the President of the Republic, to reorganize my government to make it more cohesive and better able to serve the people of Kenya. Accordingly, in accordance with the powers conferred upon me under the Constitution of Kenya, I have directed that the offices of all ministers and all assistant ministers become vacant. Consequently, the occupants of the said offices cease to hold their respective offices with the immediate effect. A reconstituted government will be in place within 2 weeks. Thank you, and God bless you.
When it was reconstituted 2 weeks later, Odinga and the entire LDP group were left out. Odinga led the formation of a new opposition outfit, the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, and orange was the symbol for the no vote in the constitutional referendum. In January 2006, Odinga was reportedly to have told police that he believed his life was in danger, having received assassination threat. Having lost the 2017 election to Uhuru Kenyatta and boycotted the rerun, Odinga had himself sworn in as the people's president.
I, Raila Amollo Odinga, in full realization of the high calling, assume the office of the people's president of the Republic of Kenya. So help me God.
Miguna, who administered the oath, was deported while Odinga faced no consequence. He went on to have a handshake and take part in government decision making. In March 2018, Raila and Uhuru had a political handshake intended to cool the political temperatures after the 2017 general elections. The handshake resulted in William Ruto being sidelined in the government he formed with Uhuru Kenyatta, with Raila Odinga being elevated to de facto deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. The handshake gave birth to the Building Bridges Initiative, alias BBI. Following the March 2018 truce between Odinga and President Kenyatta, the two commissioned a joint task force that would collect views from Kenyans and report their findings. After touring the country and holding consultative sessions, the team compiled and submitted the report to the President Kenyatta at State House, Nairobi, on 26th November 2019, which was followed by a public launch at the Bomas of Kenya the following day. The efforts by Kenyatta and Odinga to bring peace and cohesion in the country were applauded by several leaders locally and internationally, with the duo being invited to a national prayer breakfast international launch in Washington, D.C., USA in February 2020. Supreme Court of Kenya would in 2022 uphold an earlier ruling made by the High Court stating that the BBI was unconstitutional. Odinga was appointed High Representative for the Infrastructure Development at the African Union Commission in 2018. He was relieved of his duties by the entity on 23rd February 2023, the day after he incited supporters to violence through mass action. On 10th December 2021, Odinga announced that he will be eyeing a fifth stab at the presidency, putting an end to months of suspense after his surprise truce with President Kenyatta. His announcement was made while launching the Raila Amollo Convention, which would be his vehicle to State House, held at the Kasarani Stadium, Nairobi. Odinga has accrued several nicknames during his political career. These include Tinga, Ama, Baba, Jacom, and Aguambo. In June 26th, 2024, many young people went to the streets to protest against the punitive taxes by the President William Ruto. Many of the young people were killed in the street, and this led the young people to break the parliament, which necessitated the President of Kenya to release the Kenya army officers into the streets of Kenya. Raila Amollo Odinga then had the young people saw that Raila Amollo Odinga took this advantage of their protest to join the government and donate his experts to the government. This has therefore led to the young people of Kenya being disappointed by Raila Amollo Odinga. In February 2024, he announced his candidacy for the African Union Commission chairperson, but was defeated by Mahmoud Ali Yusuf in the February 2025 ballot.